guys, I'm going to show you today how to make my sourdough discard vegan donuts. So first, I want to just mention that I'm going to be using just egg for this. You can use an egg replacer. That is possible. But for the authenticity of it, I'm going to be using just egg. I'm going to be using a whole 1/4 cup of just egg, which is enough for like a large egg. All right, so first in our mixing bowl, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of plant milk. I'm using soy milk here. It's just organic, unsweetened, baseline soy milk. We want it to be room temperature because this is what we're going to use for our yeast, basically. We're going to add in a 1/3 cup of sugar to this, and we're going to add in a whole stick of melted butter. I'm going to use the dough hook attachment for this. I'm going to put this on here and just use it to mix this around a little bit. Now we are going to add in, I've got a teaspoon and 1/4 of salt and a tablespoon of instant yeast. Go ahead and mix that around. We're going to give that a minute to wake itself up, and then we're going to add a whole cup of sourdough discard. You can have this be cold, but just keep in mind, if it's not warm or room temp, it will take longer to rise. Now we're going to add our discard, mix it around again. Now we're going to add in our just egg. Now we're going to add in 3 cups of bread flour. You can use all-purpose, but bread flour has a higher protein content. It's going to make these more chewy, and they're just better, trust me. Now we're going to start mixing that up. We'll start on a low speed and then increase it until we get a nice dough forming. All right, and then your dough should look something like this. It should be sticky and tacky, but it shouldn't stick to your hands. We're going to basically form this into a ball. We're going to grease this. I'm just going to spray some oil in it so it doesn't stick. Then we're going to cover it and we're going to let it rise. It could take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours for this, but we want it to double in size. And just like that. So I'm getting ready to make the cream filling for inside of these donuts. So we're going to do a cream filling. I'm going to show you a regular frosting. I'm going to show you a chocolate ganache, and then what I do with the donut holes that don't get used. So this is a mixture of 2 cups of just egg and 2 cups of vegan heavy whipping cream. I'm using the Silk here. This is what we're going to need to make our cream filling. We need a cup of plant milk. I'm using this Blue Diamond unsweetened almond milk. And the other ingredients we're going to need is a 1/2 cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of salted butter, vegan obviously, a 1/3 cup of cornstarch, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I am using the bourbon vanilla bean paste. In a big pan, we are going to add our just egg heavy cream mixture first. Then we are going to whisk in our sugar. Now we're going to add on our butter. You don't want it hot. You really want it room temperature if you can. If it is not room temperature like mine wasn't, you can microwave it for just a little and then mix it together to make it come to the same consistency. And that goes in. Now we're going to put in our cornstarch. Make sure you do a little bit of time and keep whisking so that it does not clump up. Now we're going to add in our vanilla. And then last but not least, our cup of milk. Now we are going to keep whisking this, and we are going to turn on the heat to medium-low, and we're trying to basically start cooking this down, and you're going to need to keep whisking it constantly. I know this part seems tedious, but you really have to keep stirring because you do not want the just egg to curdle up. At this point, we can stop and take it off the heat. Keep stirring though. In order to keep this cream from getting a skin, if you have plastic wrap, you can push that over the top of this. I do not have that, but I do have some parchment paper, so that's what I'm going to try to do. Lovely. All right, so this is what you want typically with plastic wrap, is you want it to be completely flush with the surface. You don't want to have any air pockets. to keep it fresh. It's time to roll out our donut dough. So I went ahead and rolled that out. I used a silicone mat to make this easier. And we're going to use, you can either use a biscuit cutter or a ring mold or whatever you have to cut out circles. I have a biscuit cutter, so I'm going to use the largest one I have to cut out the donuts. And then with all the excess dough, you can pull it off, put it back into a ball, and roll it out again. But you don't want to make them too thin. And if you get tired of rolling it out, you can just roll them into little balls. Make little donut holes. Now you're going to want to cover it with a damp towel. I've got some damp paper towel here, and we're going to let it rise again for another hour to 2 hours. Choose to fry these donuts in is entirely up to you. I am choosing vegetable shortening because I feel like it imparts the most neutral flavor of all of the oil options. You choose the pan you want to fry in. You want to make sure it's pretty deep. You don't want a shallow pan for this. It needs to be a deep pan. I'm choosing my 13-inch skillet. It is pretty deep. You want to make sure that you don't fill your oil more than halfway in here either, if you're going to be using this. If you have a bigger pan, you can go a little bit more, obviously, because it's going to be taller, but I'm sticking with this one. I'm going to make a literal powdered sugar cinnamon coating for the donut holes. For this, we're going to want 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. This is the one I'm using. You can use whichever one you like. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of this cinnamon. I'm using the Ceylon cinnamon. Now you just whisk this together with a fork and it's good to go. Ta-da! You could also push this through a mesh sieve to get it even finer. Finally, time to fry up our donuts. So we're going to turn this heat onto a medium-low, let the shortening melt, and get this up to temp so that we can fry them. I have a thermometer. We want this to be roughly 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Guys, we are up to temp, and I'm going to start with the donut holes. And basically, we're going to want to fry these until they're a nice golden brown. Make sure you're using a slotted spoon. If you have a spider, that would be perfect. I do not. Maybe the next thing I'll invest in. So donut holes are a little bit trickier than normal donuts because, you know, flipping them is a little bit harder, but you basically want to cook them for a couple minutes on each side. Try to get them evenly cooked. When we fry the actual donuts, you're going to cook them on one side, flip them, cook them on the other side. Donut holes are looking and smelling great, so we're going to go ahead and take them out. Now I have paper towel here for those. I also have a drying rack set up with some paper towels for the bigger donuts. And I've put 4 donuts in. I usually do about 4 at a time. Alright, we're going to roll these guys in our cinnamon sugar mixture. Alright, and if you see where you can tell where it's starting to get brown, then you can go ahead and flip your donuts. I'm going to show you guys how to make a really quick and easy icing. So you don't have to use heavy whipping cream, but because I have it, I'm going to use it. You can just use plant milk. You'll need powdered sugar. If you want to color it, you'll need a food coloring, and you'll need something to flavor it. I'm going to be using the bourbon vanilla bean paste. You can use vanilla extract. I'm going to use a cup of powdered sugar, a teaspoon of the vanilla bean paste. My daughter wants this to be pink, so I'm only going to add like 2 drops of this and then mix it up, and then I will see if it needs more. And we're going to start with 1 tablespoon of the whipping cream. And it's going to need more, so we're going to add another tablespoon. And we got about 6 tablespoons of the heavy whipping cream in here, and that is perfect. A light, fluffy. It looks more pink in real life than it does on camera, but it is pink. Now the last thing I'm going to show you guys is how to make a chocolate ganache. So we're going to be using heavy whipping cream for this and chocolate chips. To the bowl, we're going to add a cup of chocolate chips, and then we are going to measure out a 1/2 cup of the heavy whipping cream. Now you could warm this up on the stove and you could let it simmer before you add it to the chocolate, or you can take the easy hack like I'm going to do and put it in the microwave. You only want to do it for 30-second intervals. Make sure you stir it in between. And back in it goes. You want to watch this, and when it starts to bubble, then you know it's good. Took about a minute and a half, and now we've got bubbles. So we're going to carefully pour this over our chocolate and mix it together. You just want to stir this and keep stirring it until all of your chocolate has melted. And then you'll just have a nice, smooth, glossy chocolate ganache. To frost these guys in the chocolate ganache, you're just going to dunk it in, twist it, pick it up, let it drip, and voila, beautiful. I'm going to show you guys how to fill a donut. So you're going to want a chopstick because we're going to need to make a hole in this donut and kind of wiggle it around in there a little bit to make room for the cream. All right, just like that. So now we're filling our pastry bag with some cream. You're going to want a tip like this for that. And we're basically just, I use the mason jar to kind of hold it together. And then we just put in the cream and kind of slide it off on the side like that. And there they are. I couldn't really show me doing the cream filling because I needed both my hands for it, but yeah, you use the chopstick to make the hole, and then you put the piping bag in and just squeeze it till it's about to explode.